Hello students, how are you? Let's start lesson 2 with its new vocabularies and a new reading passage. Let's start our new reading passage. Its title is The Trial of Cardigan Jones. It's written by Tim Egan and its genre is a fantasy. So, a fantasy means is an imaginative story with characters or events that are not real. So, in this story, we will have some animals talking together and Cardigan Jones, which is a moose, in fact. So, cannot be real at all. So, it's a fantasy. Let's start our story.
The Trial of Cardigan Jones. Written and illustrated by Tim Egan. Cardigan walked by Mrs. Brown's house just as she was putting a fresh baked apple pie in her window. Cardigan loved pies. He walked over and smelled the pie. A neighbor next door saw him, and a milkman driving by saw him too. Cardigan was new in town, and they weren't sure what he was up to.
Here we
A
have
mo-
a here we have a moose. This moose was walking one day in a street. Its name is Cardigan, and he smelled a beautiful pie baked in the house of Mrs. Brown. So he went to smell it because he loves pies.
a moment later, Mrs. Brown came back to the window, and the pie was gone. She was so upset, she called the police. She told them that she'd seen a moose just a few minutes before, so they drove around the block and stopped Cardigan. Analyze the text. Conclusions. Why did Mrs. Brown call the police and mention seeing a moose? Noticing that he had pie crust on his shirt, they arrested him, even though he insisted he hadn't stolen the pie. A judge and a jury were chosen to decide if he stole the pie or not. The neighbor and the milkman were called as witnesses.
Here we have Mrs. Brown calling the police when she found that her pie is missing. So she called the police and told them that I saw a moose walking in the street, so he may be the thief. So the policeman came and arrested the moose Cardigan and he took him to the trial in the court. And the judge asked the jury is the one who is going to decide whether someone is thief or criminal or not. And he asked the witnesses to come, like the milkman and the neighbor who saw the moose walking in the street and smelling the pie of Mrs. Brown.
Cardigan's trial started the next day. Mrs. Brown took the stand first. Is there anyone in this courtroom that you saw the day the pie disappeared? The judge asked her. Yes, she said. That moose over there. She pointed to Cardigan. There was a murmur from the crowd. He did it. He's guilty, someone said.
Here we have Cardigan's trial. He was asked by the judge to come into the court and he was arrested by the policeman, and the judge asked the witnesses, as I told you before, to come in the court to ask them whether they saw the moose stealing the pie or not. So Mrs. Brown pointed on the moose and said, he stole my pie, the moose over there. And they listened murmur. Murmur means a lot of speaking people with a very, very low voice. This is a murmur. They were saying, he is guilty. He is the one who stole the pie. He is a criminal. He is a thief. This is the meaning of guilty.
We don't know that yet, said the judge. The rabbit then took the stand. Did you see anyone near the pie? The judge asked the rabbit. Sure did, said the rabbit. That moose right there. He stole it. No, I didn't, shouted Cardigan. I didn't steal it. I promise. Order, shouted the judge. Cardigan turned, and his antlers bumped a statue and sent it crashing to the floor.
Here we have the trial of Cardigan. The first witness came, which is a rabbit. The rabbit he pointed with his finger to Cardigan and said, "He stole the pie. I saw him near the pie. He is guilty." And Cardigan was swearing. "No, I didn't," he shouted. "I didn't steal it, I promise." And he stood up, and while standing up, his large altars dropped the statue on the floor.
It made a really loud noise, and the jury gave Cardigan dirty looks. Next witness, shouted the judge. The milkman then took the stand. Who did you see at the time the pie was taken? The judge asked. Analyze the text. Author's word choice. What do the words dirty looks tell you about the way the jury felt towards Cardigan? The moose, he said. No question about it. He walked right up to the window. His face was practically touching the pie. By now, some folks were convinced that Cardigan took the pie, even though the judge kept saying, "We still don't have any proof."
Here, in the trial of Cardigan Jones, the second witness came, who was a milkman. The milkman said that he saw the moose next to the pie and his face was practically touching the pie. So he is 90% the one who stole the pie. But they were trying to convince the judge that he is the one who stole the pie, even though the judge didn't convince it yet. He didn't feel that Cardigan is the doer. He's still saying, "We had no proof."
Finally, Cardigan was called to the stand. As he crossed the courtroom, his antlers got all wrapped up in the flag. It took him over a minute to get untangled. He's a troublemaker, declared a gopher. Others nodded in agreement as the judge asked, Well, Moose, did you walk up to the pie? Well, yes, but just to smell it, said Cardigan softly. I knew it, shouted a goat. Lock him up. Order, commanded the judge. Order in the court.
Okay. Here, while Cardigan was standing up to come nearer to the judge to tell him what happened, his large altars got tangled to a flag, and it took a minute to get out of this flag. So he came to the judge and told him, "Really, I didn't eat it. I just did smell it. It didn't do something more than that."
But I didn't take it, insisted Cardigan. Honest. He stood up, and his antlers knocked the judge's gavel to the floor. Sit down, shouted the judge. But as Cardigan went to sit, he bumped the judge with his antlers. The judge fell to the ground. He hit the judge, shouted one of the security guards. They grabbed Cardigan and started taking him away. The jury members had made up their minds. But the judge stood up and said, Now, just hold on a minute. I'm curious about something, he said. Follow me.
Now we can notice something, you smart students. We notice that the horns of the moose or his antlers are making some troubles. He once hit a statue to the floor. Second, he got tangled in a flag. Third, he knocked the judge to the floor with his altars, but all of those incidents happened accidentally without really meaning that. So his horns are making some troubles. And the judge said, wait a minute. I'm curious about something. He felt that his horns made it something accidentally. Let's see.
Me. He walked out of the courtroom, and everyone followed him through the town. They reached Mrs. Brown's house, and the judge walked around the outside to the window where the pie had been. Sure enough, there, smushed all over the bushes, was the apple pie. It didn't smell very good any more. You knocked it off the window with those giant antlers of yours, you silly moose, said the judge, laughing. It was an accident. Everyone immediately felt terrible for being so rotten to Cardigan, and the jury proclaimed him not guilty right then and there.
They all went to see what happened to the pie. They searched in the bushes and they found the pie smashed on the bushes. So this poor innocent moose antlers hit the pie and make it a smash on the bushes accidentally without paying any attention. So it was an accident. Everyone feel guilty and rotten for what they have thought about the moose, the innocent moose. And
To make it up to him, they had a party in his honor, and Mrs. Brown baked a pie especially for him, even after he broke her favorite vase.
okay, this funny moose, all of them decided to make a party for him, and Mrs. Brown baked a pie specially for him because he liked pies to say sorry for him. And finally, he hit the vase and smashed it on the floor. It was her favorite vase, and without paying any attention. And those all happened accidentally because of his horns or antlers. Now we have some details that leads to conclusion. Details like his horns hit everything, like the judge, the flag, and the statue in the court. Everything is hit by his large antlers or horns. So those details lead to a final conclusion that he may hit the pie accidentally without paying attention. The smart judge came to a conclusion from a lot of details that presented to him. Now let's have new vocabularies. Trial. Trial. In a trial, people in a courtroom review what happened to figure out the truth. Jury. Members of a jury hear the facts of the case and make a decision together. Those are juries. Look at juries. Convinced. The lawyer made a jury members believe her. They were convinced. You can convince also your parents to have a pet or dog. Maybe this is called convince. Guilty. Jurors tell the judge whether they think the accused person is guilty or innocent. So guilty is the one who did the crime. Pointed. A witness pointed to a map to show where the crime took place. Honest. People in court are asked to be honest and tell the truth. Murmur. The judge asked for silence when he hears a murmur in the court. Stand. When people take the stand in court, they sit down and answer questions. Thank you for hearing this reading passage and new vocabularies, and see you in the next video illustrating grammar and writing. Bye.